Today I have a video question from a young man in Italy. Let's have a listen.
Hi, my name is Lawson, and my question for the pond digger is, can a filter ever get to a point where it produces bad things for a pond?
Thank you, Lawson, for the question. This is really super fun for me. I got to tell you guys a story about this. My good friend Kent Wallace, I know he was headed on a trip out to visit someone in Paris, and then they were going to travel down to Italy. They were going to Italy. That's all I knew. And I saw him right before he left, and it was interesting because a few days after he'd already been there, he sends me this video, and it was really weird because he was out of country, so I couldn't tell who it was, and all I do is I get this video from this young man asking the pond digger question, and I'm like, what is this? What's going on? So come to find out, Kent is in Paris. Kent is in Italy, and Lawson is Kent Wallace's friend's son, and they were visiting from Paris. So they got together, they were hanging out, and Lawson talked to him about koi ponds for a minute, and then it brought up the pond digger, and then Lawson's like, you know the pond digger? And it shows that it's a really small world, and it's just fun. But let me get to your question, Lawson. That was really fun for you. Can a filter turn bad for a pond? Yes, it can, absolutely. So let me give you an example. An ecosystem pond, for example, has a small waterfall filter and a skimmer, and they rely heavily on water plants, the fish, and the rocks and gravel, beneficial bacteria in the system. Well, as the water goes into that waterfall filter, it starts to collect debris. And at the bottom of that filter, it starts to build up, and if you're not cleaning it regularly, a lot of times these ecosystem ponds, they clean them once or twice a year. If you're not cleaning that filter regularly, that gunk starts to build in the bottom of the filter, and after time the water wants to find the easiest way to get through that filter box, and so it starts to bypass around the side. Now when it originally starts to bypass, you get this burst of flow of water as it makes its way around the filter media, and a lot of times that gunk that's in there will bypass and come right back into the pond. The filter will regurgitate everything that's been working on right back into the pond. And so oftentimes you'll see that in the stream. You'll see the gunk in the stream, or it'll go back into the pond if they don't have a stream. And I wouldn't say it's super dangerous that the koi are gonna die, because the ecosystem pond is really reliant on all those aquatic plants and the beneficial bacteria to help balance that water quality. But oftentimes I think the customer will have an algae bloom at that time, because all that organic matter gets blown back into the pond, and then that becomes fuel for the next algae bloom, okay? So that's one, for instance, I want to talk about. But one that really bothers me that I see is when they use old swimming pool technology. They'll take a sand filter, and they'll have a high RPM pump. They'll be running a sand filter, and all of a sudden their electric bill costs a lot of money to run. And so they shut that pond off at nighttime. And what happens is inside that sand filter, you have this living organism, the beneficial bacteria and everything colonizing in the sand. And when you shut it down at night, within a couple hours, if there's no oxygen in there, that bacteria starts to suffocate and it dies. So when that pump gets turned back on in the morning, all that stuff comes back into the pond, and oftentimes it'll smell like rotten eggs. So you'll have that hydrogen sulfide coming back into the pond, and that's when it could starve the oxygen for your fish. And that's really bad, because if you don't have good oxygen in the pond and you're heavily loaded with fish, you could have a die-off on your fish. And that's probably the worst case scenario I've seen on how it could be bad for a pond, a filter. So that's why I'm not a big fan about having sand filters on ponds, and we want people to use low pressure systems. We want them to use gravity flow systems. We want to use pumps that are efficient, so they don't have to turn the pumps off at night. So Lawson, that was a great question, and it was really fun to get the video question from you. I'm going to end with the question of the day and a request. I have a request for you. I want to have more video questions. So I want you to send them to me. You can email them to me at eric@theponddigger.com. Send me your video questions so we can have more of them on the show, because they're always really cool. And the question of the day I have for you is, how often are you cleaning your pond filters? Because if you're not cleaning them often enough, like Lawson said, you could be potentially making a bad situation for your fish. Until next time, I'm Eric Triplett, the Pond Digger. If you want me to answer your questions on the show, send me a video comment to eric@theponddigger.com. Thanks for watching.